Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, I'll be discussing my thoughts on the anime series Aria the Scarlet Ammo. I decided to get caught up with this series because as of the time of this recording, there's going to be a spin-off anime series called Aria the Scarlet Ammo AA, and I just wanted to go in with a familiarity with the, universe, the characters, because I didn't know how much of that stuff was actually going to come into play in the story. I did know that this was a spin-off based on a manga spin-off and everything like that, and but I wanted to get used to the environment and the characters and such. In case any of them crop up, I would know who they are and what, role they had basically partaken in the original story. And I gotta say, after having watched this anime, it wasn't entirely that great. It wasn't gangbusters like some of the other series I get into. I did watch it all the way through to the end, and it definitely had aspects I really liked, certain character aspects and everything. But I did feel like by the end of the series watching it, there was one character who was very much kind of a background character that I almost wish the show was about her, rather than who it was actually about. Of course, you're following around this cat, Kinji, who is part of this Butte high school, and Butte is kind of what they describe, like mercenaries for hire, that kind of thing. Kids are basically walking around their high school packing ammunition and weapons, and they're training for this role where they can be hired out for the purposes of different occupations, going and trying to seek and find somebody, kind of bounty hunting, being bodyguards and all this kind of stuff, searching out items, that kind of stuff. And it's very intriguing. Of course, the first episode gets you right into the thick of it because Kinji is on his way to school, and it turns out there is a bomber who has placed a bomb on his bicycle, and it's kind of like the Speed aesthetic, if you've ever seen that Keanu Reeves film, where he has to keep up a certain level of speed, otherwise it'll explode. But what's more is he's got this unmanned like vehicle thing, one of those, whatever you call it, segways or whatever, with an Uzi attached, and apparently, robot controlled or whatever, making sure that he doesn't slow down at any time, he doesn't get any help to figure out a situation and get out of it. And as it turns out, this is the introduction of the titular character, Aria herself. She comes in to save him, and there's all this, one of the underlying things about the series, there's all this awkwardness around girls and everything, because he has this ability that's almost like a dual personality, but it's not quite, where if he gets overheated and overexcited, he becomes a completely different person, much more stoic, much more badass, and all this kind of stuff. And it's almost like a hypnotic suggestion thing where he just becomes someone entirely different. And this shows him to be a cunning badass in his own right. Everyone has these different ranks in their school and everything like that. Aria is a rank S, which is the highest rank, Butte available, basically. She had originally been in Europe, but she's come to Japan. And it all has very much to do with her mother being falsely accused, I guess you could say, for many a crime. And it turns out the main criminal, who is the bomber, in fact, is somebody integral in setting her mother up, and she's basically trying to find someone she can partner up with to crack this case. And it's funny that I would use that term, because we find out through the course of the series that Aria herself, she has a middle initial, which is H, which apparently stands for Holmes, and that is because she's the fourth generational descendant of one Sherlock Holmes. On her father's side, her paternal side, I guess, because her father was said to have been British. And that's intriguing. Of course, their main sort of, enemy, if you will, at least the first one that crops up in the series, the bomber, is said to be a Butte killer. It's somebody who is focusing on, hijackings and all this weird stuff that has a sort of play on the back history of Kinji's own family as well. His brother was apparently killed in a hijacking that this bomber, when it's revealed to us who this person is, this person says, that was me. They basically claim responsibility for that. And then, of course, there's some loose dialogue to suggest maybe they weren't really responsible. You're never quite sure, and that's one of my biggest complaints about the series, is there are certain story aspects that are just never brought to a close throughout the course of the anime. I'm sure it's probably stuff that is actually brought to a close in the manga or the source material, whatever that might be, that I'm not familiar with. But basically, I mean, there are certain harem aspects as well as this, overarching mystery and trying to see Kinji and Aria get along. He's got this girl that he knows since growing up, since childhood, Shirayuki, who that's actually an alias, as you find out. But this girl is obsessed with him, and she just seems like sort of the really over anxious nerdy girl. She's making him breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day. She's taking care of him. She has dreams of him marrying her and all this kind of stuff. She's just obsessed with him, and it's like all he can do sometimes to get away from Shirayuki. And then of course there's conflict when Aria has basically deposited herself on Kinji's life and said, you're going to be my slave, you're going to be my partner, whether you like it or not. We're going to train together, we're going to figure this mystery out. And there's some like really just highfalutin tensions going on between Shirayuki, this lifelong mate, if you will, in her own mind anyway, of Kinji and Aria. And then of course you have the character, a very sort of questionable character, if you will, who's a fellow classmate, Riko, who may or may not, I don't want to spoil it in case you want to check out the series if you haven't already, may or may not have ties to the bomber, this Butte killer and everything like that. And she's very much, it's almost like categorized the sexuality of these characters and how much they're trying to get in Kinji's pants, if you will, or get him hot and bothered. Aria is very much sort of the tsundere. She doesn't want anything to do with him along those lines, but you can tell she kind of likes him. She does a couple things here and there. At one point he's sick, he has a fever, and she goes out and gets the medicine for him. You have the Shirayuki character who at first takes, she basically claims it was her who got the medicine and everything because she is so obsessed with Kinji and just, she has these big grandiose dreams of marrying him and being his wife, being almost like a servant in a way. And she's like, you can have your way with me and everything, but she's not forceful about it. And then of course you have the Riko character who is over the top. Every chance she gets, she's backing Kinji into a corner and trying to practically molest him or con him into molesting her and all this kind of stuff. And it's intriguing because there are aspects of the series that are based in literature. The Sherlock Holmes thing, in the case of the villain, it's said to be a fourth generational descendant of Arsène Lupin, or Lupin, however you want to pronounce it. And they are apparently, there's a familial back and forth between the Lupins and the Holmes, in this series at least. And you have other things like Vlad. And Vlad is the big bad of the series. And again, touching on some of my sort of qualms about the series is that Vlad, when I thought of, okay, well, they have all these literary references, Vlad, Dracula, a vampire, the one thing about the series is from right out of the gate, you're not really dealing with supernatural ghosts and goblins, vampires, all that kind of stuff. And really only comes to the fore when you have this character who is once again said to be sort of the 30th generational descendant of Joan d'Arc, or Joan of Arc, which has ice manipulation powers. It's like that just comes out of nowhere. Suddenly people have these magical, mystical powers. You find out there's more to the Shirayuki character along those lines. She's said to be a chote. She has this mystical, magical ability and everything like that, and prowess and power. She can heal you and whatever like that. Suddenly there's a whole supernatural, supernormal element that they just put into the mix. And so it kind of comes out of left field, and then when you build up toward the end of the series with this Vlad character, it's that much stranger because we're talking, this guy almost wolfmans out, like he becomes a giant hulking wolf. I figured who it was from the get-go. I figured who this villain's, alternate identity was going to be from the get-go, and it proved to be true, but I didn't see that coming. I didn't see it coming one iota that all of a sudden he was going to wolfman out, and now they got to figure out a way to take this guy down by the end, and that's the end of the series, and you have these back and forth, friendly and cooperative ties between the bomber villain and, all this kind of stuff. It's just kind of insane, basically. And if I go back to my initial point of a character that was really a standout character, you only see her a few times, and there's one episode where she's actually in the forefront. It's the character of Reiki. She is a green-haired sniper. Sound familiar? SAO, the GGO arc. She's very much like Sinon in that series. She almost looks like her. And she is a certified badass. Like, out of all the characters in this series, I desperately want a show just based on her character. In the episode, she is primarily, in sort of the forefront in. Basically, you have, the very hot and horny Riko conning Kinji into hiding in the sort of medical bay lockers or whatever, and one of his buddies is in there. So he'll get hot and bothered by seeing all the girls who are coming in to have their blood taken, although they think they're actually there for like another checkup, and they're all disrobing, they're getting into their underwear and everything. And so he is getting hot and bothered, but this is all then sort of interrupted by this silver wolf that just comes crashing through the window, goes on the attack. And you basically have Kinji and Reki, the sniper, and she's still wearing her like sports bra and underwear. But they give chase because the friend had a motorcycle waiting outside. He was perving out, and that was going to be his escape route, as Kinji notes. And so basically he and the sniper jump onto this motorcycle and give chase to this wolf to try to figure out where it came from, who sent it, why they sent it, and all this stuff. And you think, as they're chasing this wolf up this building that's currently being constructed, you think they're going to take it out. You think they're going to like kill the wolf because it is on the attack, and it's actually going after Kinji a couple of times in this building that is just, again, it's in the midst of construction, and so there's so much metal, and the walls are incomplete and everything. Things are falling apart during this chase. And at one point, the Reki character pulls out her sniper rifle and she fires it. And Kinji, you're hearing his thoughts that, he's kind of resigned to the fact that, well, she's probably just going to have killed it, out of self-defense. But in fact, we see that she is so expertly skilled that the bullet sort of grazes the back of the neck of this wolf and temporarily paralyzes it. And she goes and she sort of, kind of like if you've ever seen Lethal Weapon 4, I think it is, where Mel Gibson's character makes friends with a guard dog, and then the dog really loves him because apparently the, gangsters or thuggies that were using this dog weren't actually taking care of it. And the animal knows. The animal knows true love and true companionship and compassion. Very much does this happen with this silver wolf. Reki ends up managing to get this wolf to sort of bend back against the evil will that was infusing it and that had been put into it. And it's suddenly her pet or sidekick or whatever you want to call it. And I'm like, that should be the show. That's the show I want to see. Reki, the green-haired sniper girl with her silver wolf partner and companion. And so, I mean, it was kind of all over the place, I got to tell you. There were a lot of aspects that I laughed and enjoyed, and some of the action sequences and some of the mystery of, who was whom and who was playing whom and everything like that. But there were unanswered questions, and it just got to be like, too much of the awkward, oh, let's get Kinji hot and bothered, let's show him boobs, and let's, get him touching them, and oh, if, the Riko, the hot and bothered character, is going and getting up close to Aria and sniffing her or licking her neck, this is going to get him, completely becoming this other person and all this kind of stuff. It's just like there wasn't enough focus on the elements I wish they would have focused on. The mystery, the action elements, chasing after whoever they were looking for, in dealing with this bomber and Aria trying to get her mother's name cleared and everything. And they're only so successful by the end in even doing that. It's just, I don't know. I don't feel like there was a clear focus throughout the course of the story, and those supernatural elements just really threw me for a loop because, I mean, you're dealing with, these high schoolers, granted, who are packing weapons, who have all this, martial arts and prowess, beyond what would be normal, considered normal, super normal in this environment. And yet the supernatural stuff, it was like not very well fitted when they debuted it. I was kind of like, wow, this is just coming out of nowhere. Suddenly you got, Sub-Zero over here, female guys who claims to be a descendant of Joan of Arc and all this stuff. It's just like, it wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen. I will say that. It was enjoyable. There were aspects of it that I felt like I had to force myself to sit through to get to the good stuff. And I can see why, in certain aspects it has a fan following that I've learned is the case. It has a pretty strong fan following. A fan following, by the way, that have been disappointed that instead of getting a continuation anime, a second season, they opted for going with the spin-off story, which, take it or leave it, that's the way it is. I've heard people talking about they're really ticked off that's the case. Other people have said they preferred the spinoff. They thought the spinoff story itself was much better than the series proper. And so I don't know what to make of it. I can just give you my impressions on the series. And it was one of those situations where it wasn't horrible. It wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen. Would I revisit it? Probably not. But I most definitely would if I ever heard that the Reki character was going to get her own series, her own spin-off, where she was the central focus amongst maybe a couple other characters or what have you, because her character was the best thing about the show as far as I was concerned, and we saw so little of her. I think it's only 2 episodes, and that includes the special episode, the special 13th, where that whole episode in and of itself, don't even get me started. I mean, if the series proper didn't have every sort of story tie, basically coming to the crescendo in the end and having closure, the special episode was even that much worse because it's dealing with a hot spring town. They're supposed to be going there for training. Turns out, conveniently enough, it's Kinji, one of his classmates, and all the main girls of the series, as well as like one of their teachers or guidance counselors or whatever she is. And they go to this town, and it turns out she knows the woman who runs the place, but it's practically a ghost town after they've gotten done with the obligatory, comparing boob sizes in the hot spring and everything, and the horny friend trying to get a glimpse of it all. Suddenly you got this ghostly little kid running around, and like the one girl, the descendant of Jeanne d'Arc, is basically turned for a little while into a statue very freakishly, and it scares everybody, and then she wakes up out of it like, she has no memory of this happening to her. You have the friend then succumb to this, and then like other characters, and it's just a complete mystery. Finally they realize, oh, there's this kid running around, we don't know what exactly is going on with it, and then he disappears. They all wake up in the vehicle like they never even got to the hot spring town. The episode ends, this special episode ends with them arriving, knowing about this woman who runs the place, and she's kind of peeved that they know so much about her because they'd already actually interacted with her, whether it was a dream sequence or whether, I don't know, it was a time loop. I don't know what the hell was going on. But now the town is full of people. She's peeved that they have all this information about her. They know about her ahead of time before ever meeting her. And you basically leave off with the cliffhanger that, oh, the kid's going to do it all again, but like, WTF? What was the kid? Who was the kid? What was all that about? I don't know. It made no sense. There was no answers at all. And so that's like the one predominant thing with the series proper as well as the special episode. I can only hope the spin-off AA is better than the series proper, because it's one of those situations where I could find enjoyment out of it, but, even amidst its flaws, it wasn't a series like I can overlook the flaws because the rest of it was good, like a Kentai collection, Kankol, which was a series that had a lot of flaws, and I really still loved watching it from beginning to end. This series has just left me with more qualms than good, and so I will be dying to see where the spin-off story goes, but for the series proper, I think, unless it's something you already love, unless it's something you're already excited about by the synopsis and the characters, or you just have that back history with it, it's a pass, for me at least. So I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below. If you've ever seen Aria the Scarlet Ammo, what your impressions of the series are. We can agree to disagree, of course. There's no saying that, I'm right or wrong in my own estimations of it. I know people absolutely love and adore it. I love and adore Cowboy Bebop. That's not going to be the same case for everybody. And, but I love having the conversation, whether we agree to disagree, whether you agree with me wholeheartedly. Anything goes in the comments below. And so, yeah, otherwise, that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.